Okay, thank you so much to everyone for joining our webinar today. We're extremely excited to have you online with us today. This webinar will be posted and available at www.connect60plus.com after today's session. So please feel free to visit that website and to share the link and to have others view this website and this webinar even after today. So thank you so very much. Today's webinar is made possible with funding from Pfizer Foundation and Grantmakers in Aging as part of the Community Agenda. That's a national initiative of which this region is proud to be a part. This webinar is part of the Greater Phoenix Age-Friendly Network series called Feed Your Mind. Please join us every first Friday of the month at noon right here, and we will continue to bring you different topics that are of interest. And so we look forward to being able to work with you in the future. We also encourage you to visit getold.com. That is a new website from Pfizer that is absolutely wonderful in helping us to challenge the way that we think about getting older and the way that we live out all of our years, not just the young ones. So today we have the extreme pleasure of inviting Dr. Rick Knopf to our webinar. He will be discussing lifelong learning, and we'll be talking about some of the work from the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Arizona State University. Please help me welcome Dr. Rick Knopf. Thank you.
Thanks. I hear the thunderous applause out there. I really appreciate you joining us today. I want to give a salute to Amy. There are amazing things happening in this great valley revolving around the 60 plus movement, the age-friendly movement. We've gained national recognition for Amy's spearheading of these efforts, and we thank you for that. Also want to give a tribute to our friends across the pond in Europe and Ireland and Scotland, part of the age-friendly movement internationally. I just checked my temperature here on my iPhone. It's something like 78 degrees and pure sunshine for those of you in Dublin and Glasgow. Compare that and come on over and join us. So we're thrilled to have everybody here with us today. It's just so exciting. It's not going to be just about me. It's going to be about panelists are coming in who are the recipients of the great wonders of lifelong learning. Today, we're really focusing on the joy, the abundance of living in the more senior years, the vitality of it all, the wonderment of it all. So we're going to spin a little philosophy. We're going to spend a little bit of research that's going on in the arena of lifelong learning. And we're going to kind of close out the session by having really wonderful dialogue with people who have been the beneficiaries of lifelong learning. One of our panelists, Denise, just came in. We'll be introducing her shortly. I will not be focusing, help me, it's not advancing. What am I doing wrong? Click there. No?
Click right there. Click the little arrow.
Okay, I apologize. I am the director of the Lifelong Learning Institute at Arizona State University. It's not so much a talk about that institute, but it is sort of how I'm coming into the picture. I'm actually a professor of community development. We think deeply about the power of learning environments and building community, and that's why I'm excited about being in the institute. It's not ASU's institute, it's collectively our institute, and some of the panelists will give testimony to that in a little while. Our mission at the ASU Osher Lifelong Learning Institute is to connect older adults to the vast intellectual, cultural, and social resources of ASU, and to provide pathways to civic engagement. I just also, help me technologist, want to give a little bit of tribute to the Osher Foundation. The Osher Foundation is what's funding us here at ASU. It is the work of the great philanthropists Barney and Barbara Osher, who are basically investing huge amount of their personal family resources into the gifting of institutions that bring lifelong learning experiences to older adults. What's important to know is that they have established a network across the country of some 115 plus university and college centers that draw older adults into the learning experience. We couldn't do any of this without their kind support, and we're very, very grateful. I wanted to start with a little bit of reflection about what do the great sages say about a life worth living. This goes back to my dusty brain cells of about 20 years ago when I was in St. Paul, Minnesota, in a musty old auditorium where a great sociologist came in to speak about his work with people who were 90 and above. And to make a very complex story short, he gave me a message that has reverberated ever since and has shaped the whole last half of my life. And that is, he asked these people, if they were to live life over again, what would they do differently? And quickly, I'll just review that. There were what I call the 5 R's of a life worth living. The first is they reflected that they would have taken more risk. And as I was driving over here today, I was thinking of bowling and how sometimes you throw that gutter ball. And the image is that life was perhaps played on too much of a predictability sense. With their work, with their families, with their adventure in life, it tended to follow a routine pattern. They wished they would have taken more risk. They would have thrown the curveballs. They would have danced on the alley. They would have thrown it up in the air, down below. So take more risk. And we can all learn from these great sages. Second is a bigger focus on relationships, of the life of regret, of especially in a career, of getting the accomplishments, getting the things to put on the wall, the trophies. And he made a very powerful image of these interviews he did with people who were visiting funerals and graveside ceremonies, and how certain people had masses show up to the funeral and others had 3 or 4, and there were family members. So they wish they would have taken a little more time to have authentic relationship building. The next is reflection. They wish they would have, in their hurried, busy life, they would have just reflected a little bit more to see the big picture of seeing a purpose in life, a higher order, destiny, instead of being swamped by the busyness of everyday life. The fourth is they would have taken more time for restoration. You may call that recreation, time away, time to reflect, time to restore physically and mentally. And the last is repurposing. The idea is they've kind of lost through their life that childhood wonderment. In fact, some of the great literature on leadership has good leaders talking about aligning with the things they did as a child. I myself used to build, much to my mother's dismay, little communities in her gardens, and I'd watch the great thunderstorms of Michigan come in and flood those, and I'd have emergency vehicles and community assistance programs. Although I was a little kid, I didn't know all that, and this is what I'm doing now. My life has aligned with that childhood wonderment. So thinking about how to live a life worth living goes way back in time. We can go back to Plato. I love Plato because he established the first university on the globe. A wonderful, and somewhere in some old scrolls they found this written. Sorry for the sexist language, but this was Plato, 400 BCE. In order for man to succeed in life, God provided him with 2 means, education and physical activity. Not separately, one to feed the soul, the other for the body, but the 2 together. With these 2 means, man can attain perfection. Since Plato, there's been a lot of scientific research on us as humans. The first question I want to raise is, what does research say about longevity? The long-lived life. What are the parameters that make it happen? And in a nutshell, there are 3 E's that emerge. Exercise, education, and efficacy. It should be self-efficacy, but I want to have 3 E's. Exercise we all know about. Getting our organs going, getting our brain going through movement and feeding the body. We all know that. Education is interesting because there's kind of a double prong to it. One is those who are more highly educated tend to live a little bit longer. But more importantly, it's those who are continually feeding an education platform, lifelong learning, tend to live longer. The self-efficacy idea is they have a sense that they have a role in life, they have a purpose, they have a value. Those are the 3 things on all the studies of human longevity that pop up as efficient. I'm going to wrap back to this, to how does it fit with lifelong learning in a moment. I wanted to just offer a few resources. This is a wonderful book by Walter Bortz, Stanford medical professor, ran the Boston Marathon last year. I apologize, Dr. Bortz, but something like 82. It is called The Breakthrough Science of Living a Long and Healthy Life. What you find in this book, yes, exercise, but more the way you interact with lifestyle that creates that roadmap. Another one is called Spark. This is by John Rattay, and the subtitle is The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise and the Brain. Again, it sounds like it has to do with physical stuff, but as you dig into this book, it's these other attributes as well, as self-esteem, exercise, and what was the third? I can't remember, but it's all there. I apologize. Can you tell I haven't done this before? Okay. I threw this one in because it's cool. It's a windy day 2 days ago. And that book, I grabbed it just before I went down to the next floor. It has a little bit of energy in this book, and I love the image. Integrative Wellness Rules. This is actually a book written right here in Arizona. Jim is in the health industry down in Tucson. And again, an amazing book. If you have this aspiration of a long and vital life, look into it. I want to really call attention to this TED Talk by Dan Buettner. If you're not into TED Talks, find them. Just Google TED. Hi, Marco. This is a 18-minute talk where he and his colleagues have studied blue zones. And what blue zones are is around the globe, there are 5 cultures that have the longest living individuals in those cultures. And they unpacked what were the secrets to success. You will be amazed by the visual tour that he'll provide for you. He talks about nutrition, of course, but lifestyle. What is happening in these cultures so they live longer? The next research question I wanted to talk about is, what does it say, research, about the power of lifelong learning in particular? And I want to unpack that a little bit, and you'll see there's amazing resonance toward the issues that the seniors talked about abundant life and what makes a life worth living, about the research on longevity, and now we swing right down to who are the people engaged in lifelong learning? Why are they engaged? And I was looking for the 3 R's or the 5 R's or the 3 E's, and I couldn't. So I have the SUFFles. So I have 5 things, and we're going to call them the SUFFles of lifelong learning. The first is cognitive vibrancy. Now, we all know about physical vibrancy, and there's vast literature on physical vibrancy. This is something I want to dance around with a little bit, that your neural nets need to fire, and they need to fire prolifically in order to create an abundant life. And people are searching out specific lifelong learning experiences to create that vibrancy. We all know the old soul. Keep your mind active or you lose it. Crossword puzzles, on and on. What the neuropsychologists have discerned is there is different kinds of busyness in the mind. There is one kind of learning called fluid intelligence, where your neural nets are mapping all over your brain in great abundance. Intersections between right brain and left brain. There's another kind of intelligence called crystallized intelligence. And what happens with things like crossword puzzles, yes, the good news is your brain is alive and activated, but it's almost that crystallized rote information processing. That's in contrast to looking at the world as a system and trying to figure out how all the different parts interfere. For example, you may be an advocate for world change by feeding the hungry, packing boxes to send food overseas. That is absolutely fabulous, and there's a beautiful organization called Feed My Starving Children that I will give a plug for. That, though, is not thinking as broadly about the solutions to world hunger, which reside in political systems, societal transformation. Yes, we can feed people, but there has to be structural change in the world. And so the lifelong learners begin to understand there are easy solutions to things. There are more complex things. That's called systems thinking. And what is very interesting is this comparing and contrasting between fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. Again, look at the image on the left. The idea is to get all aspects of your brain firing simultaneously to build new connections, to have connections in your brain that haven't existed before. That is fluid intelligence. And look at the chart on the right. It is quite possible, that's not very clear to you, but here's the reality of the human brain. Fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence keep increasing all the way through early adulthood, and then something happens in middle adulthood, and that is fluid intelligence begins to wane. And as we move into late adulthood, it begins to drop off precipitously. Crystallized intelligence keeps going up. So what the power of lifelong learning is to exercise your brain to create the platform for fluid intelligence, to counteract the natural tendency. As our great friend and neuropsychologist at ASU, Heather Bemonte Nelson, tells us, she wants to see dancing neurons. And take a course from her. She's awesome. She'll bring in a human brain and you can look at it. But these are the things of neuropsychologists. There's different ways to keep your brain busy. Next is this formation of community idea. I made reference to that a little bit earlier in the presentation. The notion here is that humans are built for community. And in spite of things like the internet and Facebook and World Wide Web, loneliness in American society in particular is increasing. The sense of deep, authentic relationships is decreasing. And there's some very sobering statistics by our own AARP, who did a major study on loneliness and depression. And this is one of the things, you can Google it and find it by putting in keywords like all the lonely people. You'll also get a bunch of Beatles stuff. But one of the cool things that I seem not to be able to find, it doesn't matter, they have found that the rates of loneliness have increased almost double over the past 10 years for older adults. They have surveys they put out, and the self-reports of loneliness has almost doubled. Another thing that has happened is that there's been studies of how many deep, enduring friendships do people have. And in America, the deep friendships 10 years ago, people were reporting 3. Right now, they're reporting 1.5. So this community web is dissipating. The other thing you will find in this article, and I apologize I don't have in front of me the statistics, that they correlate the amount of activity people have in the community with their self-reports on loneliness. The more people are engaged in their faith communities, in community organizations, in helping others, the less lonely they are, almost by a factor of 2. So people moving into the lifelong learning environment covet the relationship building. 2 levels. One is they want to be around people. They want to meet new friends. But a second, deeper level is they want to build community where they're actively engaged in community and actually helping promulgate good things in the community. There's lots of science on this. This is another beautiful book if you want to explore the power of community, called The Structure of Belonging and what that does for a fulfilling life. The third is enhancing self-worth. That ties right back to the longevity research. There are people that have a sense of self-destiny, of, at its core, it's I am of value. I am of significance. I have a place in life. Here's a little essay on Steve Jobs, and the title is so telling. Want to succeed in life? Try some self-efficacy. There is this cool research on building self-efficacy that ties right into lifelong learning. It's called I can't even say it because I'm an academic. I'm supposed to say these things, but it's salutogenesis, something like that. The opposite is pathogenesis. There's unhealthiness and there's healthiness. Let me just read the 3 dimensions of having strong self-efficacy, which is a salutogenesis, the thing I can't say. First, comprehensibility. Think of this as you're sitting in a classroom. A belief that things happen in an orderly and predictable fashion, and in a sense that you can understand events in your life and reasonably predict what will happen under any circumstance in the future. That is one key to having strong self-esteem. Second key, manageability. The belief that you have the skills, the ability, the support, the help, the resources necessary to take care of things, and that things are manageable and within your control. Third, meaningfulness. A belief that things in life are interesting and a source of satisfaction, that things are worth it. There's a good reason or a purpose, and there's a reason to care about what's happening all around you. All of these 3 elements build in the good self-concept, self-esteem. And think of that in contrast to some people you may know in your life who are downers. They look at the world through a negative lens. They have a pithy type presentation and persona about themselves. So that is the third thing, build self-concept. The fourth is spiritual transformation. I could go on and on about this. There's 2 layers here too. One is people love courses on religion and comparative religion, different forms of religion, the interpretation of religion in modern society. But there's also another level, and it has not so much to do with religion per se, but again, having a sense of meaning, seeing the big picture, looking at why are we here? How do we fit in the ecosystems? How do we fit into business cycles? What is the broader view of life? And then, how do I fit in? The 5th and final one is generativity. And that is a word coined by the famous psychologist Erik Erikson. It has to do quite simply that as we mature, we begin to see the power in giving back, leaving a legacy. This slide is really neat. It says it all about generativity. What can life offer me? As we age, we start shifting it. What can I offer life? We want to give back. We want to restore the things that we feel are not right around us. We do it at 2 levels. One with our own family. I have 3 wonderful great grandkids. I can't wait to just build the legacy with them. Larry, you have 5?
I've got 9.
9 grandkids. That's amazing. So you know this story. So people come into lifelong learning to build self-discovery, to even take courses on diary building and how to communicate, how to videotape. The other aspect of lifelong learning is giving to the community. This is a Gandhi quote, be the change you wish to see in the world. So there is a great proclivity on people engaged in lifelong learning to be servant leaders, not to serve yourselves. We have this image of coming to classes, feeding your mind, going home. It is literally, how can I build awareness to serve others? Putting all the CFLs together, and I want to comment briefly on the OLLI experience. we are building platforms to hit the pistons of all 5 of those attributes. Yes, we do have our lifelong learning catalogs and our courses. There's kind of cool. Let me just, on the right screen, you probably can't read it, but listen to these courses. What a Life, Writing and Performing Life Stories, A History of the Tango, Accompaniment, Managing Differences to Unleashing Diversity. It's working with cultural phenomena and how can you connect with other cultures. Introduction to Travel Writing. There's been 12 of our students who have published in the Arizona Republic. The Science of Magic, a deep dive into science and how what seems to be mysterious and magical things happen in the world of science. From Sea to Shining Sea, the fictional stories of America. So what we're doing is orchestrating sets of courses that deliver results on those 5 parameters that people are looking for. I'm going to go back. Does it come in? Doesn't matter. This is a blurry slide. I want to kind of connote the enchantment of it all. First, on the upper left, for the love of learning, that's what this is about. For abundance, vitality, moving people into situations where they're connected with great thinkers. Upper right, the scientists who are on the breaking edges of science, to talk about systems, to talk about the amazing complexity of life, but to bring it right home to your own personal journey and where do you fit in. There are collectives organizing around the arts and cultural institutions, and we bring ASU faculty side by side with the practitioners and the theater directors and the actors and the musicians to interpret what do those arts mean in your daily life. We're using online platforms to build a sense of community, to wrestle with insights about the meaning of life and the revelations of science. We're working with partners like United Way to bring people into what we call role transformation, to discover their gifts and to move them into NGOs and nonprofits and faith communities and government and environmental roles. We're building places to be, community hubs. Larry will be talking a little bit about our campus in Tempe, at the Tempe Library, where we have a barista and donuts, and I shouldn't say donuts, they're gourmet food items, and people huddle around having conversation to build these community hubs of learning. And Maricopa Association and the governments and Amy has been pivotal in to begin to conceptualize these living spaces that create vitality. I also want to make a quick comment. It's all not local. There are international, national destinations that fuse real learning with real fun experiences. On the right, I have to throw in family photos. I went down with my son on one of these trips, intergenerational trip to Mexico. We adopted for 10 days about 60 orphans in Tijuana, put them on a bus, drove them 3 hours south, and gave them a summer camp experience. And then we also moved to a very impoverished area with an indigenous population and built a home for a family of 2 adults and 3 children. This is their home. When you do these experiences, especially when coupled with what are the cultural implications, what is causing poverty, what causes these orphanages to do what they do, and the kids to be there, what is their hope, what is their aspirations, you begin to look at life in a whole different way, and you want to serve. So pay attention to all these international destinations that are built for people like you and I. I want to put a pitch in for if you're interested in international lifelong learning. Here's an amazing book by our good colleagues in Dublin, Maria Slowey, called Global Perspectives on Education and Lifelong Learning. The reason this is a great book is it has chapter by chapter different parts of the world and what is going on in lifelong learning. If you're close to ASU, you can borrow my book or Google it, get it online. I just want to close by saying lifelong learning happens everywhere. I am excited. You are excited. It happens in your home, in your families, on the web, the quiet conversations you have with your children and grandchildren around the table. It happens in community centers and hubs. Marco's going to be talking about a senior center a few blocks away from here downtown, where amazing things are happening in lifelong learning. It happens in senior centers, in faith communities, city park and recreation programs, more classes than you can shake a stick at. Community colleges, amazing lifelong learning delivery systems, arts and cultural organizations, musical instrument museum, on and on and on. Seize the moment, be like the sages from earlier in the conversation, and live a life of no regrets, a life that's abundant, vital, and alive. I just want to thank you for paying attention to all this. I hope we can collectively get excited. We have a lot of work to do to build more platforms for discovery and meaning. Right now, we're going to kind of turn the corner a little bit and have a conversation with 3 individuals who are really excited about lifelong learning. And I'm going to introduce them all collectively at the moment, but because of the way we're set up, we're going to kind of do it one at a time. The first is my good friend Larry Conway. I've known for years. He's iconic in the Tempe community. A successful businessman, but what I want to point out on all of these little check marks here, none of that stuff is important. They are amazing volunteers to create community change. Larry happens to be the president of the Friends of the Tempe Public Library System. He'll chat about that a little bit, but as part of that, he sees the fuel of lifelong learning in all segments of society, and he spent a lot of time working with older adults in Tempe. He also is the chair of the Veterans History Project, again, emulating for us, modeling for us how our life continues to explode as we move into our older years. I don't want to call you old, Larry, but I just did. Denise Coggins, I haven't even had the pleasure to meet one-on-one, but I sent out a note for a network. Who would be great? They said, you got to get Denise. So Denise is from Michigan, goes back and forth, again, typifying much of our population here, has done work in Habitat for Humanity, but right now she's an active volunteer for Hospice of the Valley and the Ryan House. And again, she even made on her statement the comment that she wants to seek a place to live near a higher education place where she will never stop learning. So we're excited by that. Marco Mendoza, oh my gosh, I can't say enough about him as well. Got to know Marco as a student in ASU. He's the epitome of lifelong learning. He had a successful business career, felt a compelling need to serve others. He came back to ASU later in life with a family and just graduated with a nonprofit degree, and we're so grateful. He's doing a lot of work with the Lori Danielli Senior Activity Center at the Salvation Army right down the street, and he's helping and working at the Keogh Health Connection. If you're not aware of them, they work with vulnerable populations to get access to health care in the time of desperate need. So I'm going to start with Larry. We're going to roll him in. I'm going to shift over. You can join in the chair right next to me. And our amazing technologist will make sure we're still on the screen and we can turn the PowerPoint off. And can we see each other? How do we do this? Move back. Oh, look at it. Don't we look like a dynamic duo? This will be a little bit of a free-flowing, what I call a front porch conversation. We're sitting on the front porch and just reflecting about the meaning of life, the role of lifelong learning. And Larry, you can say whatever you want, but as an introduction, why in the world have you transitioned from an amazingly successful business career into the lives of serving others?
Well, Rick, let me first say, I want to thank you for bringing me here today and for our partnership that we've had with Osher all these years in Tempe. On a personal basis, I'm in the third phase of my life right now. The first phase is youth, young man, and the second phase is working, raising a family, moving into retirement. Been retired now for 7 years, so I'm in the third phase. And the third phase opened up so many opportunities for me, with the opportunity to work in the library, work for the library, work in the community, work with the Veterans History Project, interviewing veterans, reaching out to them to get their story, to put in the archives of the Library of Congress. And third, to open up my learning experience even more with the OSHA programs that we've had at the Tempe Library through ASU. I've been doing that at least for the last 5 years. I'm in the spring quarter of this year, and I'm taking about seven of these classes.
Fabulous.
And matter of fact, on Wednesday, I had 2 classes that overlapped. So 4 hours in the OSHA classes at the Tempe Library. And it was a wonderful experience. And maybe we'll circle back and I'll tell you about some of the people that I've met at these classes. But the enjoyment of learning always has been part of my life. Going to college, certainly, you're going to college, you're learning these things to help you get through the later stages of life. And as you're working and raising a family, you certainly should be learning as you're moving through these opportunities. But as you reach your later years of life, you can more or less concentrate on what you want to learn, what really inspires you.
Well said.
And there's no grades, there's no nothing like that, no papers, no pressure. You're just there to connect to the learning experience and to meet new people. And certainly that's what I have done and what we have done as a group in Tempe for the Friends of Tempe Library. And I have to say we have a bookstore, we have book sales.
Nice. We
We have the Connections Cafe, and the word connections is appropriate for the Connections Cafe in Tempe because it's located in the library. And the library, let me phrase the library in a different way. It's an experience site because libraries are changing.
Yes.
And we want to be part of that change, and I think we have. And certainly the third part, the troika that pulls us forward, is the OSHA lifelong learning classes. For example, in spring here, we have approximately 485 students, lifelong learning students, taking the classes there. And of the 15 classes that we have, and then we have 2 lectures, part of that is are going to be new people that are coming in for the first time for OSHA. And as you know, that's what we're trying to do, is reach out to the community to bring these other folks in. We have repeat learners.
And we have an amazing number of students in OSHA who have never been to college.
And
they love it. Yeah.
I talked to a lot of people that way.
Yeah.
And they've expressed that to me also. And I've garnered a lot of friendship from this over the years. I see folks that come back. I haven't seen them, a lot of winter visitors. Matter of fact, I was in a class sitting across from a woman in women artists throughout the centuries, which is taught by Alan, one of our great teachers. And chatting with her, and she's from Massachusetts. She's a winter visitor. She comes in, she saw these classes, she wanted to partake of the classes. So that's great. So we're reaching out to the nation for these classes. It's just an enjoyment for me to go to class, to have these classes, to see the folks filling up our conference room and using the library facilities for our other classes. The whole idea behind the Friends is to make Tempe a lifelong learning site, and to bring folks through the front door of the library so they can experience the other things that the library has to offer.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but what's one amazing change or transformation you've seen in someone's life? So it could be your own as a result of lifelong learning. How has it changed them?
How has it changed them? That's a good question. I have one individual in mind that Larry was a learner for a lot of years, taking OSHA classes. I saw him in the library, and we were in our class together. And as these classes evolve, the first class we usually get up and introduce ourselves and talk about Osher and what a benefit it is, and that we're proud to host Osher in the library and as part of the Friends. And I said, I take the opportunity to introduce the Friends, and if anyone is interested in being a Friends member,
There you go.
contact us. This individual contacted me, I'd like to be a Friends member. I sat down with him and had coffee in the Connections Cafe, talked about himself, his experiences, and what he'd like to do. And it turns out Larry is now a member of the board of the Friends of the Tempe Library, giving back to the community. With his past experience, and I never would have met him had it not been for Osher.
That is fabulous.
We've had many like that, as I say. Another individual that I can comment on is a teacher. Last Wednesday I was in a class, and he's a student as well as a teacher.
Wow.
Don and Kathy. And Don, his background is in Spanish teacher,
Uh-huh.
and he's taught a lot of classes for us. But I said, what do you get from Osher? And he said, well, it's just the connection that I have with other folks. And here's a gentleman that I believe he's in
That's
his 80s.
powerful. Powerful.
That's the connection. So he's learning too. It's not just on the other side of the desk.
Oh my goodness.
So
that gives me chills.
his life has changed too. And
Yes.
Kathy also. She's taken a plethora of classes that we've had. And it's just, my life has changed because after my wife's death in 2006, I was kind of adrift, but this, being in the community this way has really helped. I've made friends. It's become a family. And Don mentioned to me that one of the instances of his class is he's met other people. They join together. Outside of the class, they get together also and continue this learning and exchanging of ideas and everything else. And someone once said that the best thing about a movie is the cup of coffee afterwards. It's the same with the
That's a
Osher
nice quote.
classes.
Yes.
And we're fortunate that we have the Connections Cafe in there because we see folks getting together, sharing ideas before the classes as well as after the classes. And knowledge is power. And I think knowledge based on Osher is empowerment. And at this stage of our lives, empowerment is important because we need to keep moving forward. And Osher has provided that opportunity to me and others.
Powerful testimony. We're going to roll right along.
Sure.
I know that a lot of people watch. I'm going to bring Denise up. Come on up, Denise. A lot of people watch sports. I don't do so much. But they yell and scream at the screen. So why don't all of you out there give a thunderous applause for Larry. Thank you. I apologize. Okay, I'm getting instructions. Oh, look at that. Don't you all like the Grand Canyon behind us? Come on out to Arizona and visit us, okay?
Yeah.
Denise, I just met you today.
Hello.
It is my pleasure, but everybody speaks wonderment about you. But just in a thoughtful, reflective way, what's going on in your life? What is bringing you to this mode of volunteerism and lifelong learning? And then you can share some stories.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm still one of those people that's truly excited still by the internet. How you can just go on there and just learn all kinds of things. So in addition to wanting to do that all the time, I also want to do school all the time. And so I also teach back in Michigan at Siena Heights. And one of the things that happens in that classroom is that the students give me way more than I think give, because they keep you alert. They keep you wanting to find out about this and about that. So that constant sharing is, you're not the one in charge, everybody's doing the same thing. So taking that forward, I just continue to go to school.
Wow.
I finished a master's in 2011 after retirement because I just
Really?
wanted to just do school some more.
Congratulations.
So, of course, when we retired, we thought, well, let's be someplace where we can still do this. And so we're snowbirds, so we're in Michigan half the time, where I'm also involved in hospice there at Beaumont Hospital. And
Thank you for that.
you're welcome. I love the work. Well, I had several relatives, mother, father, brother, daughter, all gone away through hospice. So I thought they were angels. And so in my life, I thought, these people were in our lives and made everything so much better for us when we were going through all those transitions. So I thought, well, I want to do something with that organization. So in Beaumont, at Michigan, and at HOV here, it's been just a really good experience.
Thank you for that. So what does lifelong learning mean to you? What are you
I
experiencing?
think if you're not learning, you might as well just die.
That's a good comment. We'll put that on the next PowerPoint.
I mean, it's a constant thing that you know, if you're not doing that, what are you doing? Gone are the days of grandparents who sat on the porch rocking, just waiting for the grandkids to come by. Now we want to engage with those grandkids. We want to talk to them about what they know, what they can teach us, and what we can teach them. So that's always important. Also, you mentioned games in your presentation. We have game night every 3 or 4 months back home, and so the more you know in terms of trivia or whatever it is, you win. You win all the games. So that's also fun, and that keeps that kind of gaming, because of the games that we play are those brain kinds of games that help you stay alert, that help you be able to contribute to conversations in a good way, in a meaningful way. And so that's what's important.
Have you seen other people in your classes just get excited about stuff? And can you describe any of that?
Oh yeah. A lot of us are excited about everything. So many of the classes that we've taken have added so much more information. You think you know some stuff, and then you realize there are way many more questions than there are answers to everything. And if you think you know something and you really don't, and you need to listen more and study more and talk to people who know more, and then you still don't know. It's like that cup that you're trying to fill, but it's never going to be full, but you can have fun trying.
It's that fluid intelligence.
To fill that cup.
See all the connections.
Yeah. So we have taken several courses where everybody's excited about them. Last year we had Arizona Rocks, and that taught us about, we can now identify certain structures in the Grand Canyon that we didn't know had a name before.
Oh my gosh.
Or
I could point here and say, what rock is that, huh?
Well, maybe
You've
not.
done well.
I maybe they would tell you about the formation, but
No, I'm
maybe not
teasing.
the whatever.
Yeah.
So about the flora and the fauna in the canyon and Arizona in general. We had a film class at the library last year.
Very cool.
We go to Toronto's International Film Festival a lot. And I learned in that class last year that critiquing a film is very different from retelling the story, which is what I was prone to do. Take you in detail through this story when you really don't. Folks don't want to hear you tell the whole story. They want to know what was good about the theme, and the subject matter, and how it affected you, and how it will affect you, this point forward. So that was a great class. Right now, this season we had Outcasts and Heretics by Dr. Sharps. Yes. Wonderful class. All about people that maybe you have heard about in history, but maybe you want to know more about now. You can go to a library, or go to the bookstore, or online, and download now information on these people that you've just found out about.
And some of the premise there is some of the people that were perceived as outcasts were the most amazing social change agents.
Exactly. And not just that, because he didn't promote people who, in his class, in his telling of these people, he didn't give the people that he agreed with. He also gave us people that maybe he didn't agree with.
That's excellent.
Which is always a good thing.
Yes.
You don't always want to be with like-minded folks. You want to be able to exchange ideas.
Yes.
So how do you do that if you're all saying and doing the same thing? You can't. There's no exchange there.
Yes.
And another class we had with Dr. Sharps just recently ended was the divide in the country. So the political divide, the emotional and the political divide between the North and the South, that they're basically, in some cases, still two countries.
Yes.
That was a really good class. And let's see, the one more I wanted to talk about when you asked me that question on the email. What class was that? It just slipped my mind.
You can see your neurons firing. This is all good.
Just slipped my mind.
Well, that's okay.
Forgot the other
Can
one.
I ask you one last question before we turn the table to Marco?
Mhm.
We talked a lot about the sense of community today. Are you feeling that as you moved into Arizona? Are you finding new friends through these experiences?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I have a brother here, so that was one of the reasons why we settled here for the half-time. But we have met lots of people here. The Hospitals of the Valley and the Ryan House connections have been really good.
Yes.
So we do things with them. So it's been a really wonderful experience. We found out more about Phoenix because we are with all these different organizations.
That's
I
a
also
beautiful
volunteered at Lodestar, the
Oh.
community for the homeless
Absolutely, downtown here.
downtown, and
Mhm.
that's an amazing organization.
Yes, it is. Hats off to you.
Working with those people, so
Yeah.
it's been a good fun, and I must say the caliber of instructors, the professors, all excellent.
Thank you.
They know their stuff,
Yeah,
and if they don't know, they say they don't know, which
That's-
is also a good thing.
hugely important. That's why I don't teach these courses. I'm not at that caliber. But thank you so much for
Oh,
joining us
you're
today,
welcome. You're
Denise
welcome.
and
Thanks
Marco. Come on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And again, that thunderous applause from the World Wide Web. As Marco approaches, I already did mention what a beautiful servant. I got to know him at ASU. He hung around our partnership for community development because he wanted to create social change. And he had a heart for the elderly and found his way into the Salvation Army. But Marco, you are an icon of success. We're so grateful for your service to the community and the way you shifted your career to serve others. But having said that, where is Marco today in this whole world of transformation and serving others? Give us a storyline about the Marco, the father, the community member, and then we do want to go into the Salvation Army.
Thank you, Dr. Knopf, and thank you very much for inviting me. And as you mentioned earlier in the introduction, I did have a shift in my career, and I was working at a bank in Southern California, and through that process, my involvement through the Community Reinvestment Act and the responsibility that the bank has to give back to the community, I became involved with those roles, and I found that the job that I had, the position that I had, was the wrong job, the wrong field. I was doing the wrong thing.
Fascinating.
Because as I became involved in these nonprofit organizations, I felt really compelled to be more involved, and through that, I guess through that gift from the bank, I was able to get back into this career that I'm in now, which is the nonprofit field, and I became active on the boards with the Boys and Girls Club out there in Southern California. I was involved with the United Way Allocations Committee, and through that process, once again being able to understand what nonprofit organizations were out in my community. And you mentioned the family. I wanted to make sure that I was able to demonstrate to my daughter that there's more to having a very nice paycheck. It was the importance of being able to know who's within your community and what relationships you should have with your community, regardless of the fact that they have more or less than you. And I guess it was really almost another blessing in disguise that the financial institutions started to go down, things started to change, and I was one of those individuals that was laid off. But with that, once again, I saw an opportunity to go back to ASU. I was moving back to Arizona, and I didn't really know that ASU offered a nonprofit management degree, and I really got to know Lynn McDonough, and she invited me to take advantage of what courses were available there, and also start my education process once again. I want to say that it was a little bit challenging for me at the beginning, but again, a fantastic ride. I'm really proud to have been part of that process, and that's where my transition to become involved with the Laura Daniele Senior Activity Center began.
So tell us about that. It started maybe a little bit as a class project that you actually brought the energy around. So at that center, we're talking about, again, vulnerable populations, and the mission of the center is to create life quality. And so you became a part of that fabric, and it all has to do with energizing the pursuit of learning. So tell us a few stories about what's going on at the center.
Well, I'll tell you a couple of stories of what my experience was at the very beginning when I arrived there, and there's many students that are involved today.
Yes.
And I'm really grateful for Nick Strauss, my professor, who introduced me to really the first course of the nonprofit management. But going into the Laura Daniele Senior Activity Center, it was a requirement that I would go in and do some research. But from that relationship that I established with not only the staff there, but the individuals who are within the Lower Daniel Senior Center, which are the seniors taking advantage of the services there, I completed that project, and I decided to go back because I felt a connection. I felt something that was there within me to say I need to give back. I need to give them what they so graciously gave to me, which is I had to complete a project at school, and they agreed, sure, we'll do it, we'll help you do it. And then when I came back, I decided to say, well, what is it that you want? What is it that you what would you like here at the Lower Daniel Senior Center? And again, they were, anything you want to do, Marco, we'll accept it. So we had some conversations, some dialogue in regards to what it is that they were interested in. And one individual in particular mentioned that they wanted to have some technology there in the senior center. So through that, I went back to Nick Strauss, and we did some brainstorming, and through his support and with his students, we all went back and we did some fundraising. We were able to acquire 3 computers that are very specific and designed for seniors to be able to use either by touch tone, by just touching the screen, or traditional keyboard. The experiences that I saw were really neat in themselves, because you had individuals who had didn't want anything to do with technology, but the more and more they saw other individuals engaged in getting on the web, getting on the computer, the excitement that they saw in those individuals who were very willing to get onto the systems, they started to change. They started to have, Marco, could you show me how to do this, or could you have someone show me how to do this? And we did. We were able to assign some support to some of the seniors that are there. To date, there's individuals from outside of obviously from the Lower Daniel Senior Center, and even from the Westward Ho, there's individuals who go to the Senior Center, and they're specifically engaged in wanting to make sure that they're on the computer, they're able to communicate with some friends and family that are not here within the state. There's individuals who are on the web right now, who are researching things that they did in the past. In the military, they love seeing the helicopters, the technology, their videos, and the smiles that I see are just kind of like fantastic. It's amazing. It brings me a lot of joy to know that I was a part of that. I was a small part of that, Dr. Knopf. I wasn't the entire thing. There was many people involved, and you too.
I think you're humble, but it's all a community effort.
Exactly. It was exactly, and many people involved in the process of getting the seniors engaged in new technology. And again, I'm so super proud to have been part of that process. And I can't wait for the next story after me to be told, because there are still individuals there, still students there, engaging with the seniors, and they too are seeing something new that I haven't seen today. So
it's part of that legacy building. I'm going to share one story that I heard about the center, and I'll have you reflect on yet another. Among other things, people are using Facebook. They're getting connected with family members in other parts of the globe that they hadn't been in conversation with. But one of the neatest stories is that I have heard, there's many neat stories, I could go on forever, was a woman who was fearful, as you had pointed out, about the technology, saw others, became absorbed, and asked for help, didn't even know how to punch on the keyboard. And so Dana and some of the others taught her QWERT. She then got to the point she took online instruction on developing her typing skills. She then started exploring the web. She took some of these free classes. She was taking tests, and she is now taking her first community college class. And I don't know what her age is, but she's older than I am, and I'm pretty old. And that is, again, the fascination of life that this lifelong learning is given. And you probably have another story of somebody whose life has opened up.
Well, I think the one thing, there's more than one story, and there's many stories, and really the thing that I truly enjoy is when I'm there, or when I was there, because my time has ended. When I was there, I was able to be a part of individuals in more of a group setting, as we've all discussed, being able to be connected with each other, because it was the computer and the idea of the technology being there, but as one person was introduced to the computer, more people just started to come in, and then having a relationship, engaging with each other, because what I saw was that individuals only did one thing or another, one activity or one task, but this activity for me that I saw, it allowed them to be more engaging with each other, because they started to teach each other, they started to show each other, they started to know and understand what others were interested in, and that in itself engaged them together, and really they can do that all on their own now. That's really neat. I think it's amazing. So there are many stories, Dr. Knopf, and I think they're not going to be they're not going to end, because as long as there's a relationship between ASU, the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance Student Association, the students from the Nonprofit Management degree program, and Nick, we're going to continue to do that, and everyone's going to continue that, and they're going to have a relationship, a partnership, and we're going to continue to build abundance in the community that we're amongst, that we're within.
Thank you, Marco. Our time is waning. I'm going to turn it over to Amy. Thanks for the thunderous applause one more time. We are so grateful for Amy, again, for the leadership she's providing metropolitan-wide in this arena. I'm going to turn it back to Amy. Thank you all for your patience.
Thank you so very much, and thank you again to Dr. Rick Knopf for joining us today. It's been absolutely wonderful to have you here, and thank you as well to all of the guests today. Thank you so much for joining us. This webinar will be available on www.connect60plus.com, so please feel free to visit it and to allow others to do the same, to invite others to do the same. And also, please join us on May 2nd at noon. We will be joined by Gene Jones Jr. He's an executive chef who will be talking about changing the way that you eat. So again, thank you so very much, and have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you.